It is 8 p.m. on the DOT on Fresh 105.9 FM. Welcome back to the other news on the road show with Rolake. Guys, you know what we do? We check out stories from newspapers across the country and around the world. And there's a topic that from the crack of dawn, or should I say from midnight yesterday, everybody all over the world has been talking about. Everybody should know about it. We've spoken about it in detail on the show already, but today has been set aside for the International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation. And I just want us to talk some more about it to create more awareness and for everybody that's listening to know that it is a crime. And if you are still practicing it, I've said it before, you will go to jail if you are caught. Yes, guys, I told you earlier that I have a few people with me that are going to talk to us some more about it. And I want to start by introducing the lady on the left of me. She's the namesake of our co-presenter, BYZ. Her name is Bimbo, but I'll let her do the introductions herself.
Okay, good evening, viewers. My name is Abimbola Aladejare, founder and executive director of the New Generation Girls and Women Development Initiative.
Fantastic. And I've got a guy riding with us as well. I'll let him do the introductions.
Okay, my name is Sola Fagorusi from One Life Initiative for Human Development. I work with the organization as programs and media manager.
Yes, guys. So these two people, they are experts in plenty fields, but today in particular, they're going to be talking to us about female genital mutilation, the practice, how it's practiced all over Nigeria and all over the world, and steps that, you know, are being taken to make sure that this practice ends in one generation. And we're hoping that by 2020, 2030, you know, we can put a stop to this finally. Shola, share with us, you know, general tips, facts about FGM that people listening might not know about. People might have never heard about it at all. People might be wondering, what are we even talking about?
Okay, so in terms of gold medal, Nigeria has it when it comes to female genital mutilation. We're number one in terms of, you know, a country with the highest number of girls and women that are being mutilated.
Okay.
Now, this does not mean that Nigeria has, you know, the highest in terms of prevalence. We have countries like Somalia, Djibouti, who have prevalence of about 98%.
Okay.
But because of our own sheer size,
Our population.
again, so we're talking about, you know, a major global phenomenon, you know, at least a major global, you know, epidemic of sort for us here. 200 million girls and women, 10% of that is about 20 million. So we're saying that 20 million girls, you know, and women in Nigeria have actually been mutilated. In terms of data as well, for all of these, we always depend on, you know, authorities that have put together all of this, and we call it the National Demographic and Health Survey Report, which again very clearly explains to us that states like, you know, Osun is actually number one when it comes to the prevalence here in Nigeria, followed by Ebonyi State, followed by Ekiti State, followed by Imo State, and then followed by Oyo State.
So we're number 6.
We're number 5.
We're number 5.
Oyo State is number 5.
Okay.
And, you know, so that much in terms of, you know, statistics. So several advocacy are going on to make sure that we can actually end this in one generation. The generation is about 25 to 30 years, to make sure that the next generation of mothers and fathers do not, you know, believe in this harmful traditional practice, you know, like we call it.
I couldn't say it better myself. Shola said it all. I know that a lot of people will think we're lying when we say that 20 million females in Nigeria are survivors of FGM. But like he said, 181 million people. Just our sheer size means that we have the numbers. Yes, some of our other African countries practice it way more than we do. But just thinking that 20 million Nigerian women, girls, females, have actually gone through this. Now, some people might say, my religion says it's okay. On the show, we brought the head of Form 1 and a pastor, and we spoke about it from Islam and Christianity, and both religions do not say it's obligatory. It's only obligatory when it has to do with a man. BYZ, you're a Muslim. What do you know about FGM?
Okay, I've actually read about it, and Islam actually prescribed the circumcision for men and not for women. There is no anything specifying any cutting of female genital as far as female is concerned. But I know that culturally, what I have heard that was attached to it, because I mean it does not have any health benefits of whatever sort, is I think the talk about promiscuity,
yes,
and all of that. But of course, knowing that it comes with lots of disadvantages would never make anyone want to even consider that. Why would you think that you're bringing a child to the world and that's your first concern? you know. But I know aside from that, there could also be some cultural affiliations to it, which I don't understand, but majorly. But my question would be to you that, what have you done if Osun State bears #1 in Nigeria? Have you made effort to, go to that community, that part where it's being practiced, to like gather these women together, educate them on why this is bad? I mean, lots of diseases can be transmitted through this and all of that, and pains maybe later in life when these children are matured to have sexual intercourse and all other things. Have you done this education? Have you?
Okay, Bimbo, let me let you take a shot at that. Yeah.
Okay, well, like you said rightly, FGM is deeply rooted in culture. And when you talk about culture, these are things that are passed on from generations to generations. And about what we've been doing, of course, we've been engaging communities. We've been engaging people, talking to different groups. We've been having youth groups, we call it community dialogues with young people. We've been having community dialogues with women groups and community stakeholders. And when we talk about community stakeholders, we talk about the traditional ruler, we talk about the women leader, the youth leader, and all that. So we've had several projects, UNFPA funded projects, UNICEF funded projects, the Girl Generation, and other donors, working in the country to support the abandonment of female genital mutilation. But again, what keeps coming back is the fact that people are scared. There's this myth that is wrapped around FGM practice. For example, when they say if a woman is not caught and she's trying to give birth and the head of the baby touches the clitoris, the baby will die. This is a myth, and no mother hears that and
would want her baby
I want
to
my
die.
baby to die. And that's one of the reasons why people say, why is it that it's women? And you say it's men that is then trying to oppress women. But it's women that are promoting FGM. Yes, because of their knowledge level. Until mothers are educated to make informed decisions. And I usually use myself and my family as an example. I am a survivor of FGM. And my mom allowed my grandmother to cut me because she felt that what she was doing for me was in my best interest. You get? But when the knowledge increased and she got to know that FGM is bad, is harmful, she didn't cut my kid sister. And there is this myth around it that, if you don't cut them, they will not have surviving children. That's not true. My kid sister is right outside the studio with her child. You saw that beautiful baby. So it's just this myth that is wrapped around it. And that's why we continue to engage communities. We continue to do online sensitization. We continue to do media sensitization. And, of course, community-based outreaches.
I want us to take some calls on this, but before we get into that, I want us to touch quickly, because of time, medicalization of the practice. Because some people listening now have gone to school, they are educated, they consider themselves enlightened, and might think, this is my culture, but I'm posh now. I won't let a local cutter cut me. I'd rather go to a nurse practitioner or hospital because this is my culture. What do we say about the medicalization of it? Does it make it a bit better if you do it in a hospital and not with the local cutter? Because some people might think that.
Okay, so just like you say with the local cutters, for instance, that, so in Yoruba parlance, it said that Omo Kinkulowo Onikola.
Okay.
But what we don't hear is what happens after the child has
whether she has excessive bleeding or infections.
Exactly. And, we differ in terms of, our tolerance to, stress and, any other medical condition.
Okay.
What, person A would actually survive, person B may not be able to actually survive. So in terms of medicalization as well, even way before we started talking about core medicalization in hospitals, we also had some of these cutters who would say that, look, we don't use all those crude implements. We go to the chemist store and then we buy, sterilized blade and then we use one blade per child. Okay, but it's still the same issue. Even when it comes to medicalization as well, the truth is that there is no medical doctor. So if you look at the curriculum for, medical training in Nigeria, whether for a midwife or a nurse, whatever it is, you don't have any content there around teaching individuals how to perform mutilation. And it explains again to you very clearly why, for instance, for male circumcision, we just have one type. And then for female, it seems that people were just doing trial and error, different types. Oh, someone cuts here, and then, another person tries this way. And then we started having type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, which is unclassified that look, enough of this classification.
There are so many ways
other
that you can
thing that is
mutilate.
done, let's put that as type 4. So really, the law exists. We have what is called the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Any doctor who is caught, just like you said when you started this program, would actually be jailed. There is no doctor that can beat his or her chest and say that,
legal.
look, I do this in my own, hospital as part of my clinical practice. It's criminal. We have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Oyo State has the Violence Against Women's Law, which was put together in 2016. Here in Oyo State as well, in 2006, we have the Child Right Law, which was put together, which puts a fine of about 100,000 naira, and or a fine of 4 years imprisonment. So these are issues around it. But again, it's of growing concern that in countries like Nigeria and Egypt, we are seeing a rise in cases of medicalization.
So where it should be reducing, period. So now people are switching. Okay, so which again tells you about how strong when we talk about culture. Whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, we had a case of a lecturer last year. A doctor, an academic doctor, who was going to mutilate his daughter, and it took some form of national intervention. It's about people's culture. Adolf Hitler's, what's his name now? The man who was in charge of his propaganda would say that, look, when you mention culture when we're having a conversation, the next thing is I touch my gun, because you are talking about the core of individuals.
Culture is
and
life
that's why it's difficult
itself.
again to push this from the legal perspective. Because tell me, how are you going to report your mother? How are you going to report your father or your grandmother or your auntie to the police? We need to talk about behavioral change. Someone shared a story with us, yesterday, and said, look, the father told the child to sit down. The boy refused and said, I'm not going to sit down. Then the father said again, sit down. He insisted I was going to stand. The father went ahead and pinned him down. And he told his father, like, look, even though you can see me sitting down, inside me, I'm still standing. It's about behavior. It's about what people hold as their own culture, as their own identity. So
how do we make that change? How do we do that
so
shift?
That's why, several of these, interventions has been around. We discussed this from the health perspective majorly, that look, these are the health implications. And just like Bimbo said, that's why we're having things like community dialogue. We're beginning to talk to pastors and imams and say, look, 2 major points. When people come to you for counseling, premarital counseling, tell them about this. Mention it. We did the same thing with HIV/AIDS in this country. People started doing testing before, everybody, went with that. Begin to talk this to intending couples that, look, when you guys have your children, if you have a girl child, love the girl child, for that matter, make sure that the girl is not caught. When you also go for naming ceremony, and interestingly here in the Southwest, the cutting happens the next day after the naming ceremony.
Wow.
So make sure that when you're preaching, you also mention this. And we've had, clerics. I'm excited that we've had clerics, we've had pastors, we've had imams. Someone was saying, to us in one of the studios we went to yesterday that, a girl was going to be caught, and then there were conversations about don't cut the girl, which hitherto, before now would not even happen.
Not have happened.
Okay, so these are issues I just think, we should also place on the table.
Okay,
I also think that when we are looking at the issue of medicalization, like you said, culture is deep. But we need to let people see, based on facts and figures, their fears are not true. They are nothing but myths and misconception. For example, when we engage community and they tell us, I don't want my daughter to die, we bring survivors of FGM who have children who do not survive. Even though they have been caught. And we have people who were not mutilated and they have some surviving children. So we use them as FGM champions to engage community members. And we realize that it really worked. So when people can see somebody from their own community who was not mutilated and have surviving children. So it's largely about the fears. It's about, hey, what if? So we need to track that and let people understand that all these things are myths. For example, one of the reasons why FGM is practiced that a girl will be promiscuous if she's not caught. But that is not a fact. Promiscuity is a thing of the mind. It's the way you bring up your child that will determine if the child will be promiscuous or not. It is not a function of mutilating the child. Now to fact and figure. He was talking about states with the highest prevalence. Ekiti also happens to be one of the states, the second according to UNICEF UNFPA Joint Survey 2015, as the second highest prevalence of FGM in the country. Interestingly, Ekiti State has one of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy in the country. As well. So how do you explain that? So we have a prevalence of 71.2. So it means that out of every 10 girls in Ekiti State, 7 of them have been caught.
And yet we
have the highest rate of teenage pregnancy. So we ask ourselves, were they impregnated by the Holy Ghost or something?
I have
Very
this
nice
question as well, because especially for the purpose of our listeners, some of them might really do not know why you're fighting this cause. What does FGM survivors, what do they suffer that, people who didn't have that court are enjoying?
Before you answer, which is why in my previous conversation with Shola, I felt it was very important to have a survivor on the show. Because I feel like there are a lot of women that are probably struggling, want to talk about it, but think it's a shameful thing. There's a stigma. Some women don't even know they've been caught.
Yeah.
Some women don't even know they've been caught. So,
Right.
please, as BYZ asked, what are some of those struggles? I know what I'm thinking, but people often say that we as black people, we do not read. So assume that even after this conversation, they're not going to Google what we're talking about. They're going to take your word verbatim. What kind of struggles might they go through? What kind of, things?
Well, the first struggle as a survivor is the fact that what has been done cannot be undone. That's the first reality that dawns on me. Like, forget it. This, I cannot go pick it and put it back. So it is caught forever. So that pain is there. Sometimes you feel resentful that how I wish somebody was there to say no.
Stop.
This is wrong. And that's why it's important for mothers to understand that if your child, your daughter, grows up and gets to find out that knowledge about FGM is this much, and you still went ahead to court her, she may not be able to forgive you. Because I went back home to my mom. She's listening to this program. And I said, Mommy, why did you do this? Why did you court me? I said, I did not know. And that is why when I got to know, I didn't court your kid sister. So for me, that settles it in my mind. Okay, she did not know. But if she had said, well, they told us, but I felt this is best for you, I may have that bitterness in my heart. So this is one thing mothers and those who are promoting FGM needs to understand. It is difficult for a survivor to accept, and that's one of the things most survivors are really bothered about. They wish they can get something done. They wish there can be a surgery. Of course, we've heard that there is a surgery, corrective surgery and all of that. But it's quite expensive. It's not even available around here. So it's number one thing. Then number two, sometimes you feel you are not complete. And again, that's why campaigners against FGM, we have to be extremely careful not to do harm. That's why we promote do no harm principle. Because I was in a conversation, I had people say, yes, we're going to be telling our men, you must not marry circumcised women. Women that have been circumcised will not marry them. So they should stop.
That's not the fight.
They are trying to say that, let mothers know that if they cut their daughter, we will not marry them. Children. But I told her, excuse me, there are some of us that are caught and not yet married. So that's another thing that we also need to be very careful about, So there are a lot of people, like Oyo State, Ekiti State, we have high prevalence. So up till about 5 years ago, the campaign is not this intense. It's not this strong. So a lot of girls out there are still mutilated. They are survivors of FGM. So there's this psychological effect. There's this trauma. There is this feeling of I'm not complete. And that's why you see some campaigners say a normal vagina, a normal external genitalia. So you begin to think to yourself as a survivor, so I mean I'm abnormal. These are realities. And when you talk about the effects, of course, it is a fact that women who are mutilated will not reach orgasm as much as women who are not mutilated. It's a fact. Survey statistics have established that. But again, it doesn't mean that because I am a survivor, I should resign to a life of I'm not going to enjoy sex. No. That's why as a survivor, you need to read wild. You need to understand. And some people have the type 3, which Shola was trying to mention. The type 3 is the infibulation, whereby the clitoris is cut off, the labia minora and the labia majora cut off, and a strong rope
is tied
and
to
thread,
seal it all up.
Is used to tighten it so that she doesn't have sex.
That happens in Nigeria.
Yes, it does.
And they leave only a little hole so that urine and menstruation can pass through. That's type 3. Type 2 might just be the lips, inner and outer cut off. Type 1, the clitoris on its own. Then type 4 might involve stretching of the lips, cutting of the inner lips. And note that when all this is done, they've got to put their own form of antiseptic, which might be local, which might be corrosive. So imagine all the complications that will create on its own. Imagine you being sewn up as a child, and then when you are old enough to be married, to be intimate
on your wedding night,
that has to be
opened again.
So those are the things we are talking about. It is a form of torture.
It is.
It is a form of torture. And sadly,
It is.
it's a form of torture that people don't consider torture. So we need to talk about it so that younger girls that have not been born, the ones that are alive, do not go through this unnecessary practice.
Again.
Okay, so for survivors, you need to begin to read on how do I enjoy sex in my marriage, because you cannot undo what has been done to you. So how do I? And that's why husbands, people who are married to circumcised women or mutilated women, they have to be extra, patient with them. Of course, there's this regular saying about African men, they go straight to the point. No foreplay, no, although they just go straight. So for women who are mutilated, we need to understand. I can see the guy in the studio laughing.
Vincent is laughing, guys.
So you need to be a little patient with your woman, because it affects a woman. It's a lifetime thing. It's a lifetime issue. That's why FGM is not just our culture. If the culture, people make the culture should not make the people. So if a culture is harmful, for example, many years ago we have this horrible tribal march, but nobody's doing that today, because we realize that it doesn't have any benefit
and it's
to
illegal
anybody.
too, according to Nigerian law.
Again, we need to also understand that FGM is harmful, and if it is hurting our daughters, our wives, our mothers, then we should do away with it, because again, it has no benefit to either the woman as a girl child or as a grown-up woman. They say the head of the baby will touch the clitoris. The question is, does God make mistakes?
Exactly.
God put the clitoris there for a purpose, for a reason. So if we are removing it, it means we are saying, God, sorry, you did your work, but you did not do this well. Let's help you complete it.
Can I just add to what you said now about the removal of the clitoris? I learned that. Apparently it's a muscle, and that once it's removed, it could actually make it difficult during childbirth as well.
Yes.
So those are part of the complications as well.
Yes.
So you don't stretch as much as women that even stretch still need to be cut sometimes when they are ready to give birth. But imagine if the elasticity that you were given naturally has been reduced or removed. So those are part of the things we are talking about. I want us to make this interactive and just talk to some of the people listening to us right now. Let's take a call quickly. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, madam.
Hi, good evening, sir. Your name, please, and where are you calling from tonight?
Yeah, this is Pastor Tony. I'm calling from Ijebu.
Very nice to have you on the show tonight, Pastor Tony, all the way from Ijebu. Let's have your contribution, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I'm trying. I heard what you people are saying there, but I want you to know something now.
Okay.
When our fathers are doing all those things during that time, our ladies, we know that we always have virgins between our ladies much.
Okay.
But this time around now, there is no more virgin again.
Okay.
And let me just tell you now, and this time around, if you go to the street, you see our girls are flat. During that time, this thing, when they cut it, it will not make them flat. But this time around, they are so flat.
So you're saying that now, even if they cut it, they'll still be flatting?
If they cut it now, you see the ladies that they cut, they caution themselves. They don't go much
They're
to man.
still cutting.
Okay, sir. Go on, please.
So they doesn't go much to man. They caution themselves.
Okay.
This time around, those ladies that their things are there, they always, you can, even before you touch them, their body have already moved.
You're a pastor, sir, yes?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
interesting.
Yes, I'm telling you what is happening.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate your contribution all the way from Ijebu, Igbo. Okay, these are the classic misconceptions that we are talking about. But I want Bimbo the survivor, not BYZ, to answer this question, because we've got two Bimbos in the studio tonight.
Well, thank you for calling in, and we appreciate your contribution. But the truth of the matter is, he was talking about promiscuity.
Yes.
And like I said earlier, maybe he hasn't joined when I mentioned that. We have facts and figures. States with the highest prevalence of FGM are states with the highest prevalence of teenage pregnancy. So there is no statistical backup to say. And again, we had a survey. We did a survey with sex workers. Commercial sex workers, brutal based and non-brutal based, because we have two types. We have the Romans and the sitters. So the Romans are the aristo babes,
the Romans are the aristo.
And the sitters are the brutal based. And we realized that about 70% of the sex workers have been mutilated. So it has nothing to do with promiscuity. If you don't want your daughter to be promiscuous, please train that child as a pastor in the way of the Lord. One thing we need to understand is the clitoris does not make a woman look for sex. It only makes a woman enjoy sex.
The act.
So if you don't, he said if you touch them. So why do you touch them?
He said even before you touch them, the ones without, they're already.
No. That
reminds me of something that I heard on one field.
And
Study
again,
that we went for.
Again, we talked about
yes, so and the lady in that field experiment said to us that ladies that have not been circumcised will use a stick to start pleasuring themselves, that they start to itch and they are eager. And I thought, this sounds more like masturbation than pleasuring, but that's another topic for conversation. I find that generally a lot of people think that it does stop people from being promiscuous. They do not understand that promiscuity
but look
is
at
a
the
thing
logic.
of the mind.
Just look at the logic. So what's the function of the clitoris? Okay, because again, it's the flip side. It's amazing how we're pushing this the other way. What's the function of the clitoris? Like she said, it's supposed to be for sexual pleasure. And so if the organ is not there, what happens?
She can't enjoy.
She can't enjoy, and so there's a propensity that she continues to even look for, just like the
Exactly.
data.
That is the gender part of it. So it means that a woman is not entitled to enjoy sex. So that's the gender part of it. Because we begin to ask questions. He talked about our ladies are not virgin. What about our boys? So it means that the girl is supposed to be a virgin for that Superman, even though that Superman is sleeping around and enjoying himself. It's okay. So who is cutting the penis or the external genitalia of the guy so that he doesn't sleep around?
Or
so you can see that FGM is rooted in this gender inequality in
which
society.
is why I say somewhere, like with everything else that happened during the ancient times, somehow it started happening, because we don't know the origin, or do we?
We don't
know the origin.
No,
it started in different places for different reasons, but the only thing that we know that is common is that it happens to women. It's these men, they were trying to control us back in the day.
That's what you
Back in the
said
day.
about the survey that was conducted, that it was realized that about 70% of women that are into prostitution are actually were survivors. These people really do not want the feelings. What they want is the money. So if they don't enjoy it, I think it gives them the opportunity to actually get into the heart. Do more and make the money. So that is not curbing anything. Going back to what the pastor says about people there are so many people that were never caught and were not what he mentioned.
All I have to say to the pastor is, Ajebota or my pastor. You should listen to the song.
I need to also say something. We need to understand that things have changed. He made a very assertive point, but I need to let him understand. Even in the olden days, they call some women okoko, kukombod. So it means that they have different husbands. We know people in many years ago, like 20, 30 years ago, they will marry like 4 different husbands. They will move from this husband, go to the next husband, and later come back to the first husband.
And
these women we are talking
just
about.
starts.
Yes. The oldest profession.
This
That's what they say.
It is.
These women were mutilated. So the fact that women are not mutilated and that's why they are prostitutes, that is not correct. It is not true at all.
Even the Bible itself says, train up a child
in the way to go.
So it's about the moral
upbringing.
It's about the
The studio lines are live, guys. Be a part of the show. Okay, and they are blazing. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Yes. Okay, nice to have you on the show this evening, sir. Let's have your contribution, please.
Yeah, I think government has a lot to do in order to secure our girls' time.
Okay.
Because as somebody that has talked earlier on, that some part of Nigeria, that thing has still going secretly. I was able to be at that part, and I know there are some traditional things they practice. I'm telling you, I have had a woman who has a small baby, and they have to take her to traditional home. And I was telling the guy, this woman is having a small pelvic according to the doctor report. You have to go to the medical center to check it out, but they have to go to the doctor. So, government has a lot to do to secure our girls' time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you. Now, I know the government has a lot to do, like with every other facet in the Nigerian society and system. But like BYZ and I will often say on this show, the government has their part to play. What is our part? The government is not the one coming into our houses to circumcise little girls. It's you and I. If we do not report the people circumcising the people to the government cannot do anything to enforce the law that is already in place. So we're the ones that need to learn how to name and shame. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening, ma'am. Your name, please, and where are you calling from tonight?
This is Sandra calling from Challenge.
Hi, Sandra. Nice to have you on the show. Let's have your contribution.
Okay, I actually love the topic you brought up this night.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I'm a survivor of genital mutilation.
Okay.
Okay, and what I want to contribute is government is not doing much as to sensitize people about female genital mutilation.
Okay.
For instance, I heard about female genital mutilation when I was in secondary school.
Okay.
That was around 98. So, when I had my daughter, I decided, no, I'm not going to cause my daughter.
Okay.
So I used to have a friend who caught her daughter.
Okay.
She caught her first daughter. So the second daughter she had, I was opportune to be in Lagos with her. And I told her, please don't cause this child. This is wrong. I gave her reason. She said, no, that me, I should be careful that my daughter will be promiscuous. She said, no, I don't believe in that.
Okay.
So, on the long run, she said she traveled to her father, to the father's hometown, and she was dating the daughter one day, and she was like trying to watch her, and the daughter was like, feeling tickled. Hello, are you there?
Yes, we're listening, ma'am. Go on.
Listening.
And the daughter was feeling tickled.
Okay.
She has to just make contact and look for a place, local herbalist or whatever, to make sure the daughter is caught. I said no. What you did, and this was when the daughter was around 5 years old.
Wow.
And I told her, no, what you did to this girl is wrong. You should have just let her be. She had a daughter last year.
Okay.
I was there. She's my very good friend. I told her, please, don't cause this daughter. This your daughter. She said no. She has to, because she has done it to the
other
sister.
two.
And now that in Lagos, she no longer finds places where they do that. She has to travel, blah, blah. All those.
Yeah.
I just pleaded with her that, please, don't cause your daughter. It is wrong. Very, very, very wrong. So what I'm trying to say is that government should sensitize people more. Like when you go to all these community health centers, let them tell the nurses to tell these women about female genital mutilation, that it is wrong. It is wrong. I am bitter. I'm always bitter whenever I think it.
Oh.
Whenever I think about it.
Yes,
this
ma'am.
may not be allowed on radio. I may tell you some of my experiences.
Okay, go on. Yes, ma'am.
Like
Go on.
sexual intercourse. When I discuss with some of my friends, when they tell me, this is what they enjoy, this is what they enjoy. I'm like, what? Like when they sell female orgasm, I don't know about it. I have two children.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a boy and a girl, and I made sure my daughter, I never caught her.
Very well. Very good.
But when they tell me about this is their escapade, this is what they enjoy, I'm like, no, I've never felt this way.
Oh.
Like I don't even know. I don't even want to go. When you talk about sex, I don't want to hear it. I only did it because I want to satisfy my husband, and I want to bear children for him. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that please let government or let organizations, like once you brought this line, let them do more by going to all these local, let them go into villages, these local health centers. People need to be educated about this. Tell them it has no benefit. It has no benefit. There's nothing, no gain.
Thank you so much.
I watched our last kid sister. I watched her being caught.
Whoa.
I think I was a bit
old
like
then,
I was about
older.
Like maybe 8 years old when our last 10 years old. So I was watching her being caught. I saw the way it is done. It is like, in fact, I don't want to just talk about the experience. It's awful.
Yes, ma'am.
So what they should do is to go into villages, stages, not towns. We, people like us in towns, we already know about it. Yeah. So they should go into towns and talk to people about it. This is where it is still being practiced largely and widely.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you so much.
Some people that seem like educated, they still do it.
Yes,
because this my friend I talk about, she is educated. But she said because she's getting her child and she was trying to wash her and she felt sick cold, so she has to cut her. Just look at that reason.
Imagine. I want to say thank you very much, Sandra. We really appreciate your contribution and you sharing your experience with us on the show today. We appreciate you and your honesty. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Ibadan and the world at large. You just heard live and direct from Bimbo and from Sandra to survivors of the FGM practice. I just want to throw some numbers out there to keep it in your mind. 20 million. That's the amount of females in this country that are survivors of FGM. 200 million in the entire world. That's a lot, people. And everybody, including men, which is my next question, including men, have to lend a voice to help us fight and end the practice of FGM. Shola, do you think that if men take the lead in this struggle, that we'll get further quicker? And I say what I mean by that. We are in a patriarchal society in Africa, and women tend to agree and listen to anything the men tell us to do, or some women anyway. Do you reckon that if men were the ones actually championing this kind of campaign, that more people will be more inclined to listen, to stop practicing it, and maybe it will be quicker in ending?
I absolutely agree that we should actually involve, more men in the campaign. We can't have just men. We need to have a mix of both men. You can't tell the story more than someone who's actually, really affected by this. So we need to also get men involved, in the advocacy. And that's why, again, we're also talking to traditional leaders. Of course, given, our systems, our system here, you have more men who are actually traditional leaders who can, whenever it is that they actually talk, their words are law, their words are law, in the society, in their own, mini society. So, yes, I agree that, again, we also need to understand that more than this, oftentimes we always have situations like, the story Sandra just shared now, maybe we're not seeing the picture of the husband in all of this. Oftentimes men are also indifferent to all of this. What they just say is that, look, the mother, the grandmother can take care of whatever it is they think is the responsibility. We're beginning to say that, look, for young men out there, we need you to begin to take charge as well. Know what is happening to your daughter. Know what is happening to your own child. Be able to have conversations with your wife to know about the well-being of your child. Someone was sharing and said, look, what happens again for kids, especially in the southeastern part of the country where you have them doing the type 4, which is numbing. Again, is that so you have this child that you usually would bathe regularly. What happens with numbing is that every time they have to bathe that child, what they do is they deaden the clitoris. They have to numb, the clitoris. And so over a period of time, that organ is actually there. And, someone was sharing that what he has seen is that a child that you normally would dip into water and you take out of water, when you dip that child in water, and once you have, the lower part of the child touch water, because of what is happening right there, the child suddenly begins to scream. Even here in the southwest as well, when it happens, just like she said, it happens at the backyard, it happens inside the house that you don't know. And then you have the child begin to cry, regularly for a period of time, and then they say the child is actually teething. These are excuses. So yes, we really need to get men involved. We need family men who can really say, look, this is my decisions, around this. We had a billboard, in town here, and, someone called and said, look, is a bus driver was having a conversation with his wife and said the wife said that they should cut and he said that they should not cut and wanted to get our opinion.
Fantastic.
Okay, so yes, we're beginning to see that happen, and then we are hoping that more of this will actually happen, where we also have men at the forefront of the advocacy to end female genital mutilation in one generation.
Okay, I want to, commend Sandra. I think, like most people, she actually said that the government needs to work, but I think she has started that work as well. And I think a lot of us still need to do that. I mean, you don't have to be involved in any organization, and we need to read. Like Rolake said that you might just hand there. We need to read and learn about it so we can educate ourselves and educate people around us. If you're exposed to this information right now, I think you need to start telling people. It bothers me actually when we find ourselves in a situation whereby we women or female are just subjected to some things. I mean, you're not supposed to enjoy things, and I want to go back to what she said about, our friend baiting her daughter and realizing that she was tickled. In fact, for you to know that a man is active, the guy wakes up in the morning and the thing is up like that, you're saying correct.
But it's
My
not
boy.
so
why it is normal for the boy, but so why does it become a crime for the girl to be tickled? It is a serious fight against the female child. And now that you have this knowledge, I want to employ that everybody listening to us right now, please try and read up and educate people around you. We don't have to always leave this in the hands of the government. And again, I must commend Sandra. She's done fantastically well. She can do more by encouraging other people who wants to do that, to desist from it.
I want to say thank you quickly to one of my listeners, Alicia Akorede. If you're listening, I appreciate you. About a week or so ago, she engaged me on Instagram and sent me a lot of articles from Islam about female point of view, male point of view, the hadiths, and wanted me to know that she does not support it. And in her own little way in Poly, she's been telling all the girls she meets that it is a no-no. And I promised her that today I was going to talk about it in detail. So thank you very much, Alicia Akorede, for that message. And I hope that you've learnt a lot from the show today and that we've done you proud. Yes, guys, it's 8:41. My studio lines are still blazing, but I've got to let Shola, Bimbo, and Bimbo out of the studio. So, last words before you go. What is that one thing you want people listening right now to walk away with that they would never be able to forget about ending FGM? What's that one message? Me, I know the one message that got me and got me. I was not able to stop thinking about it. So, Shola starts.
Okay, so for me, it's the understanding that yes, this is stronger from the aspect of culture. We need to change, cultural, perception to things. We're not trying to change your culture. We're trying to change your behavior in this instance. So for me, again, it's a knowledge that when we talk about harmful traditional practice, which we actually have as part of some culture, some of these things have changed. We used to force feed children at some point. It has changed. Before now, when you give birth to a male child, that was the big deal. Nobody reckoned with female children. It has changed. We used to talk about widow practices. It has changed. Again, if you look at it from the medical perspective as well, when we were talking about Ebola, for instance, we depended on authorities like the WHO, World Health Organization, and then we believed their recommendation. When we started the fight against polio as well, they said we needed to use vaccine, and we believed that and started to do that. When we're talking about Lassa fever as well, the same thing played out. Why is it that suddenly this body of professionals again are telling us that it's time that we have found out that sorry we didn't have this information earlier up until 93, 97. We found out that this is harmful to your health. Please stop it, and then suddenly we're saying no. This is our culture. So that is what I think people should actually take back out there to say, look, we depend on all these credible institutions. We depend on society needs to begin conversation around. And I'm happy that she's already conversing about it. You said someone sent you. This is the kind of conversation I think we need to sustain.
Okay, I think for me, it's actually going to be about the religion. I mean, we tend to be very religious people in this part of the world. We're Christians, we're Muslim. Yes, we have the traditionalists as well. But we should, if the two religion says this is not a part of it, then we should know that it is, coming from God. Like, we so believe in God that much, But unfortunately, the kind of religion we practice is that we take a bit from here and then go back to our village and do, the other choral one that
and add everything.
And the unfortunate thing is that we're not proud to say, yes, we're still doing our other side run from the village. We'd rather come out and, present to people that we're still that very religious people that we are. So I think I'm going to preach to us in our godly way. If Islam does not subscribe to it, if Christianity does not, and I'm sure that even the traditionalists, some of them knows that this is not helping.
I heard a video on Nicola where the traditionalists did not even circumcise our own child. But please carry on.
Do you understand? So I think we need to look at it from this way. And she said something. God does not make mistakes. What we need to help our children is knowledge, education. Talk to them as much as we can. The reason we have a society that we have now is not because people did not go through FGM. It's actually because we're leaving these children to be trained by the society. We're leaving our responsibilities. Mothers are out there looking for money. Fathers out there looking for money without paying attention to these children. We need to talk to them, train them the way that is good, God's way. And of course, they won't depart from it. It is not until any child is caught before she becomes that good child. And please, let us enjoy. God, what that
women,
thing, yes, they should allow us.
How many nerve endings does a female clitoris have? About 8,000. How many does the penis have?
About 4,000.
We have double. Bimbo, please let's get last words from you tonight.
Well, my last word is FGM is not replaceable. It's not reversible. And it is difficult for most survivors to survive. Mothers, we need to understand that. We reassessed our culture and saw that killing of twins wasn't necessary. We stopped it. Let us stop female genital mutilation. It is harmful. It has no benefits. And like she said, we cannot replace education with mutilation. Most parents are not performing their duty. Most mothers, when they tell their daughter, if a man touch you, you get pregnant.
See, how come we all know it? Because we're all told
we're all told the same thing. I remember when I started menstruating, the only thing my mom told me that, if a man touches you now, you become pregnant.
And you raise it yourself.
And that was all. Like, as in, that was everything I got to know about reproductive health and all that from home. So we need to go back to the basis. If we go to our secondary schools, the things that are happening.
Fear God.
FGM must end in this generation. Let us be that generation.
Very nicely said, guys. I'll just cap everything they've said of today by telling you what I tell you every day. First of all, get your PVC. It's very important. Go and get your PVCs. But about FGM, though, I mean, I don't want to raise my kids in a society or in a generation where they do not have the same rights as the boy child. As we've said, I think this is female specific, and anything that's going to control women, I'm not a supporter of, but FGM in particular, I consider a form of torture. Imagine a 7-year-old child and you get a blade and you start to mutilate that child. It doesn't matter what part of the body you are cutting. It even makes it worse when I think that you are cutting the most intimate, most sensitive part of that child's body. So please, let us all work together, men and women alike, to educate everybody and anybody to end FGM in one generation. Now, before you go, guys, people are under the impression that, or is it a misconception, that this happens more in rural areas than in urban areas.
It's not true. You know, she just talked about her friend who is in the urban center, who, despite all the education, despite all the information, look, you have professors, you have doctors who would this practice in high regard, who would leave wherever it is they are to get things done. We always would talk about people who even export circumcisers
abroad.
Yes, abroad, to say, look, this community of Nigerians, it's time for us to do this. We can't find a quarter around here. We need to bring someone. So we bring someone and cover the cost amongst ourselves. There, in other countries in Africa, we talk about summer cutting, vacation cutting, where they have to bring the child back home. Just to tell you that, yes, the statistics here in Nigeria shows that it happens more in the urban center, sadly, surprisingly, than in the rural center. Okay, and this is data, this is National Demographic Health Survey that we usually would depend on for so many programming.
Very nicely said. In case anybody's thinking that this is just an African problem, I want you to know that radio journalists and media people all over the world, from the United Kingdom to America, are also talking about this today. From what Shola just said now, we want you to know as well that people are exporting cutters to other parts of the world to continue this culture. Some people say it's our culture, but isn't it interesting to see that as Nigerians, we don't seem to unite on anything that takes us to a progressive conclusion. But we seem to be able to unite on, the weirdest and most absurd cultures like cotton. So we might not have anything in common with those from the southeast, the south-south, the northeast, southwest. But one thing we all have in common is that FGM is practiced and we all have to end it. It's 8:48 on the clock, guys. My name is Rolake Bello. I want to say thank you very much to, first of all, Abimbola Olowu, part of the Fresh FM family, and then my delectable guests in the building tonight. I've got Shola and I've got Bimbo here, activists and advocates for many different causes, but for tonight, FGM. I say thank you very much for coming to hang with me, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Ibadan, this is the Road Show with Rolake. I am out of time. I've got back-to-back bills to pay. So I want to say thank you very much for hanging with me tonight. And I'll see you guys tomorrow, 4 p.m. I love you guys. And don't forget to stay tuned. Keep it 1059. Keep it Fresh FM.
Fresh 105.9 FM. Invigorating.